In this tutorial, you will learn how to master main light sources like Vray HDRI and Vray Sun for your exterior scenes by controlling the light angle and intensity, shadows and contrast, and adjusting the white balance inside Vray Frame Buffer. Also, I'm gonna show you some tips to speed up the process. Now let's dive in. Hello everyone, I'm Said Mandegar. Welcome back to yet another tutorial. So great to have you here, and I hope you have a smile on your face while watching this video. Here I have a scene from one of my latest tutorials, a street post-production. If you want to learn how to do a post-production on a final render, you can click on an interactive card I put here. Before we dive into the scene, I made a quick presentation to explain how the sun acts in the real world, so you can learn the whole thing faster and better. Here you see our building in center and orbit. I'll explain from the beginning of the day to the sunset and explain how the sun acts, okay? East. This is the point that the sun rises in the morning. The horizontal rotation is 0 and generally it rises up to 25 degrees and the shadows it produces is soft. South. In this point the sun reaches to its highest level. Too much light, short and sharp shadows, and it produces a high contrast. The horizontal rotation in this point is 19 and the time is around 12 to 1 p.m. and generally it rises up to 90 degrees as you see here. West. In this point the sun is about to set. The area looks a bit reddish and the shadows are long. The contrast is not high, but it's more than the morning time. The horizontal rotation in this point is 180 and the sun set to 25 degrees. North. We don't have any sun in the north in the real world, but in some season it gets close. Anyway, let's go to the create menu, then select light. Here I have two options. I start with Vray HDRI, which is actually accessible through Vray Lights. Choose the Doom light in the list and simply click on the environment to set it. Before I start rendering this basic lighting, let me make some changes on the Vray render setup to make it ready to take some test renders. If you need to learn how to set up your Vray renderer, watch the video I add in this interactive card here. One thing that is super important is to assign a simple white material to cover the whole scene, so only in this situation you can reach to a correct lighting. Make sure you check the ambience occlusion. It helps you a lot in correcting the shadows. Okay, now it's time to assign a HDRI map to our environment and dome light. For a 360-degree lighting, I need to change the mapping type to a spherical. Here we have the horizontal and vertical rotation. Don't mess with the vertical, cause it changed the horizontal line and destroyed the whole lighting. Horizontal rotation works as the sun rises and sets. The preview you're watching right now is like someone is standing toward the south, okay? So as I said earlier, if you set the horizontal rotation on 0, the sun will be in east, and as you increase the number to 19 degrees, the sun goes south, and if you continue, the sun goes west. Here is the most important part of HDRI lighting. Overall multiplier. A control for overall brightness of the image. Render multiplier. Controls the brightness of the HDRI image only when rendering. It has no effect on the display of the image in the material editor, so you have to take the render or set the render mode on IPR to see the changes. There are two different styles. First is to type the same number in both, and second is to make a gap between the numbers. Let me show you. First, I assign the HDRI to my dome light. As I've said, this multiplier increases the brightness. I continue adding more brightness until I feel it's okay. Now you see the HDRI map is a little brighter due to applying a high render multiplier number. The scene is clear, but there is no specific shadows, highlights, or contrast. Now as you see, the highlights and contrast looks better, but still needs more. Next, I reduced the inverse gamma, which increased the contrast. Now the scene is getting more contrast. As you see, I keep the contrast and increase the brightness, but there is still no specific highlights. As I increase these amounts, the shadows behind the trees appear. Now I think the total brightness, contrast and shadows are cool, so I can apply some more effects via Vray frame buffer panel, especially the white balance. I try to do some slight adjustment to correct the white balance. In Exposure tab, you can increase the contrast as much as you want, but don't go too far. And to increase the shadows, you can use the curves or levels. All of these items affect on the total contrast, which also include brightness. By the options I explained, you can apply and control the HDRI environmental lighting of your scene. Here I'm gonna show you a very useful trick to speed up your process of getting the perfect light direction. As I've said earlier, to change the light direction, you have to change the horizontal rotation number, right? But now, all you need is to select the Doom Light and activate the Lock Texture to icon in the Doom Light tab. So if you rotate the Doom Light, the light direction will also change. I think this direction feels so good. We can feel the depth of this street. So this option allows us to act more creative and gives us freedom to find the best direction. Break for a few seconds, then we dive in Vray Sunlight. I hope you enjoyed watching HDRI lighting. Now it's time to switch to Vray Sun and find out how to use and control this item to light up our scene in the best way. First, I switched the environment map from Vray HDRI to Vray Sun, which is located in the environment tab. You can load it by pressing the 8 key on your keyboard. Let's take a shot to see what happens if we just use the Vray Sun environment map. Well, not good at all. So now I add the Vray Sun to complete the lighting process. Go to the top view. Select the Vray Sun from the Vray Light menu. Then start dragging from the south to north of your scene to simulate the correct direction. Now just right click on the scene and go to the front view to lift up the sun to specify the vertical angle. Just keep in mind those tips I explained in the beginning of this video. It works exactly like the Vray HDRI Sun. I mean, the whole theory is the same, just you can do it in some different ways. Okay, now let's adjust the sun's rays amount. Sun intensity multiplier is the most important item of the sun's rays settings. It determines the light amount. Size multiplier effect on the shadows. If you want to have soft shadows, increase the size, and if you want the shadows to be sharp, reduce this number. Photon emit radius helps the light reach to some places that are not exposed to direct radiation. Now let's take a render to see the result of these changes I made. Okay, it looks good for the first time setup. Now let's analyze the light and make some changes based on it. Well, as you see, here I have a very sharp edges on the shadows. The major problem I see in this shot is that everything is too bright and I have no good shadows. Sounds like the sun is colliding with the earth. So what I'm gonna do is to change the vertical direction and also some slight changes in horizontal direction to make more shadows. Let me increase the size to produce the soft shadows. Well, shadows are softer and I see some more shadows behind the trees and cars, but the sunlight is still too bright. Just keep in mind that whatever you do, try to make the best contrast. Now I just changed the direction to show you the result of this action. let's do some final adjustments. And at the end, I apply some slight changes in Vray frame buffer tab like exposure, white balance, curves and levels. Whenever you feel you're done, change your render setup settings and take a shot to see everything work as well as you want. That's it for me, hope you enjoyed this one. Please like this video if it was helpful and subscribe to my channel to see more. I wanna thank Lenka Kozic for supporting me and also Martin Safarchek, Bu Huang, Adam, Daniel Gallagher, Alireza Tabrizi, Jack Leong, Joseph Marienka, Riley and Tara. Also, I wanna thank each and every one of you for watching my videos. See you soon. Have fun.